So my first year, I had a ball. I mean, I had a ball. I mean, I was putting bad guys in jail. You know, I really loved it. I can even remember my parents came to visit me one time, and we met at they came by the precinct towards the end of my shift, and I was told they were there, so we drove up, and my mom said when she saw me get out of the car, she said, the way you moved when you got out of the car, I saw a cop get out of that car. So then after I was there for a year, they switched me to a residential area, which is a different kind of work. You know, you're not locking up multiple guys in a night. You're looking for residential burglars. It's much more painstaking, meticulous patient work. And so I went from an area that I just loved to an area that I wasn't built for. And I started getting bored while I was there.
Is that when you started looking for something else to do?
Well, I don't know that I looked so much for something else to do. I wanted to become a member of the SWAT team. And it took 3 years to get on the SWAT team. So I'm there, 2-ish years. And the guys, I knew most of the guys that were on the SWAT team. And they said, well, put in for the selection process. Just go through it. If you put in, then the commanders, captains, and sergeants are going to get to know that you're interested. They're going to keep an eye on you. Then next time around, you got a better shot. So, all right, cool. So I put in for the selection process, ended up number 1 on the list. Number 1. Shocked everybody. So the captains went to the lieutenant colonel and said, let's waive the 3-year rule on number 1 guy here. Isn't going to have 3 years for 10 more months. And Lieutenant Colonel said, I don't care. Rules are rules. We're not waiving them. So I'm in a precinct I'm bored by. They're taking everybody on the list under me, one at a time. And there was even the discussion of the possibility that if they took everybody, they still wouldn't take me. There'd be a whole new selection process. So I'm a little annoyed by this. And then my father says, what do you think about federal? I'm like, I'm happy in Kansas City. So he introduces me to this guy with the Secret Service. And I talked to this guy, and he says, I've traveled all over the world with the Secret Service. And I remember thinking, somebody paid you and paid for your flights and paid for your hotel to go all over the world? Like, I'm from Iowa. Like, I'd seen Canada from a distance. That was the extent of my international travel. So I'm like, that sounds cool. And so I didn't know one federal agency from another. No idea. Secret Service, I would go down there. We're not hiring. So I see an article in a newspaper, FBI's first $1 billion budget. I knew enough about budgets that I thought, it's got to be salaries, they got to be hiring. I went down, I put in, it was the first of a 3-year hiring push, and I got in.
And just like that, so how long is it between when you get accepted and when you're going to the FBI Academy?
Yeah, well, October 31st, I'd had 3 years on the police department, and I would have gone to the SWAT team. The Bureau hired me on October 15th. And I remember, I'm a dumb 20-something-year-old. I put in for the Bureau. And I remember literally telling people, whoever offers me a position first. SWAT team comes, I'm going with the SWAT team. The Bureau comes, I'm going with the Bureau. And then they kept, the police department the chief at the time hated the FBI with a passion, hated the FBI. So they had a rule that if you left the police department, the only job you couldn't come back from was if you became an FBI agent. Now, you go take a job as a dog catcher, they take you back. You go take a job, think of something, a hairdresser, I don't know what. But the only job, and in my exit interview, they literally told me, they said, you understand you can never come back if you join the Bureau. I'm like, well, it's not my intention to come back. But so consequently, I had to keep my application a secret till it was in the final stages. They couldn't go interview any of my commanders until they were sure that they were going to hire me at the last minute. And, that led, I was still a mouthy 20-something, so that led to a couple of problems as I was leaving the police department.
What's the beef? Where's the beef? Did this guy have a specific beef with the FBI? Was it like a case where the feds came in, like straight out of a movie?
He had
jurisdiction,
been seen talking on the street with ladies of the evening. And that a couple of bureau guys spotted him on the street with these ladies of the evening on the way to a meeting. And it made it back to the city council because the agents were wondering whether or not they could trust the guy. And they said, I don't work with this guy. And then he went on to, like the FBI, this is how bad it got under this guy. I don't know if you're familiar with the FBI National Academy.
Yeah.
But if you get sent to the National Academy, the Bureau pays all your expenses, pays for your flights. Mm-hmm. Like, doesn't cost an agency a dime to send somebody to the National Academy, and it's a stepping stone in a lot of police departments to becoming chief for the next promotion. It's a big deal.
Yeah. I spoke at the last FBI National Academy meeting. Right. Yeah. It was awesome.
So I get there in the FBI Academy, October 15th, and they start talking about how they pay all expenses for cops. And I'm thinking, nobody from Kansas City has come here in 10 years. It can't be that it's free. Like, no, it's free. That's how much this guy hated the FBI.
Wow. So you get picked up for the FBI. You show up to the academy. How's the academy?
Yeah, it was good. Running, shooting, mostly academic. Mm-hmm. The physical aspects of it were not super challenging. You could, if it would help you at the time, you could be in no condition at all, and they'd whip you into shape. Mm-hmm. They ended up having problems with that later on, and so now you can't get in unless you're in at least a minimal physical condition.
Got it.
But you could come in and be fat and completely out of shape. If you put in the effort, you'd meet the minimums. And they weren't huge. Like, FBI agents are not wrestling people to the ground on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. So they want you to be physically capable, but, it was more rigorous than a police department because you might get into a wrestling match with somebody every day. And the Bureau's tactics is to outgun the bad guys so that physical confrontations are unnecessary. So they want you to be able to handle yourself, but it's not that big of a deal. They really want you to do the classroom work. They want you to be able to shoot well. My shooting improved significantly from when I was there. And it was good, solid 16 weeks. It was transformative. How
are you looking at, because you're a cop coming off the mean streets, and how are you looking at the college kids? Is there fun with that with that interaction?
Yeah, I was a lot more harsh, so to speak, more aggressive, more blunt than the vast majority of them were. I was, and they come from all walks of life, and they're going to turn them into agents. But I was a street cop.
What percentage of people are previous cops rolling in there?
Pretty small. They at the time, they hired in 5 categories. Cops are in the modified category, which is all others. Like, you're not a lawyer, you're not an accountant, you're not a scientist, you're not a female, you're not a minority. You're not any others. You're not a language. You're not already fluent.
Got it.
So everybody else goes into a large category, modified, and it's a more competitive. Theoretically, it's just more people there. And I was modified, so not that many cops.
Was there any? Did you have any challenges when you were there? Was anything hard for you?
No, I don't think so. Nothing there then. I mean, I was already in decent condition. Took care of myself pretty well. I could study when I felt like it, and I already knew how to shoot.
Do people get kicked out of the academy? Like, what percentage of people make it through? I mean, they got a good screening program, so I'm sure it's not that many.
Nah, yeah, it's even better now. And no, not that many did. Not that many did. Like, if you got caught lying about anything, You should be shown the door. Any cheating should be shown the door. They had a problem with physical conditioning because they would enforce the physical conditioning rules in the academy, but then not once you we're actually in a field office as an agent. And somebody brought up, well, if legally you're full FBI agents from the moment you walk in the door, you shouldn't get fired from the academy on something you won't get fired from if you're in a field office. And you shouldn't be fat and out of shape in a field office. They just weren't firing people for that. Mm-hmm. So they just raised the physical minimums to get in the door.